This project is really about conscious evolution. This is a much more expansive view of the world and your position in the world. Welcome back to Healing from Racism, Lessons from the Tao Te Ching. I'm Lisa Jagona, and in this video, I am going to be sharing reflections based on verse 13 of the Tao Te Ching as it relates to healing from racism. Before I jump in, I just want to take a moment to share a comment about this project. This project is something that I couldn't have imagined embarking upon or sharing publicly on YouTube, of all places, a few years ago. It's a path that many people I know avoid because it requires facing ugly truths about ourselves and humanity and provokes difficult and painful memories and emotions. I understand why many people choose to avoid looking at it seriously. And as I continue to work on my book, Healing from Racism, and on this video series, I've found it necessary to remind myself why, after a decade of kind of noticing things and after 2 years committing to write a book, didn't know which book, that I finally decided that this was the one and this was the time. And quite frankly, and unfortunately, my mom's right. Racism is something that will always be there because greed and hatred will remain part of the human condition. And a part of us will always be afraid of the stranger, and we will teach our children that. And so this project is really about conscious evolution, breaking the cycle. Do I have a choice in who I become? And to do that, I am forcing myself to stop, feel, and to consider what it means for me to give myself to hatred and to sit with hatred to understand what hatred would require of me. How does it feel within my body? What does it do to my thinking processes? And what does it demand as I engage with the world and with others? And then to look at this version of myself and decide, is that the me that I want to become? And so this project is about building resilience, first and foremost, to thrive in a world where racism will persist. But it's also about affirming my power to choose who I become. Now, if you've been following along, you know that I mentioned that verse 8 is one of my favorites. You can check it out here. Well, chapter 13 is right up there, and it is a doozy, and it challenges many paradigms that we hold dear. And for this reflection, I'm really going to jump around, but I'm really going to focus on the last two stanzas. But I do encourage you to use the link to the PDF to read the full chapter because it is beautiful and powerful. So it reads, success is as dangerous as failure. Hope is as hollow as fear. Then jumping to the third stanza, it continues saying, what does it mean that hope is as hollow as fear? Hope and fear are both phantoms that arise from thinking of the self. When we don't see the self as self, what do we have to fear? See the world as yourself. Have faith in the way things are. Love the world as yourself. Then you can care for all things. Here in verse 13, I see echoes of the golden rule, which is the principle of reciprocity that is repeated in many of the world's spiritual traditions. In the Abrahamic traditions, you have do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or love thy neighbor as thyself. In Buddhism, we read, one should never do something to others that one would regard as an injury to one's own self. And in Tamil, we are asked, why does one hurt others knowing what it is to be hurt? That's the irony of racism and hatred. It really provokes us and causes us to break this rule of reciprocity. But here, the Tao extends our responsibility beyond the human experience to all of existence. See the world as yourself, love the world as yourself. And this is a much more expansive view of the world and your position in the world. Sometimes it seems to me that we can be afraid to care because caring makes us feel too small and inadequate, afraid to have our hearts broken or feeling like we don't have the capacity to hold it all. We can abdicate our responsibility to care. And verse 13 gives us a clue for how we can increase our capacity to care for all things. See the world as yourself, love the world as yourself. Then you can care for all things. By seeing and loving the world as yourself, you increase your capacity to care and have compassion, to not be ruled by fear, but to have the expansiveness to hold the infinite, the way things are. Love the world as yourself. Then you can care for all things. Contemplating this theme of healing from racism, I'm really looking for a path for lasting healing and restoration. There are many short sighted and narrow minded solutions that encourage us to keep running away from the very heavy and dark past, which failed to prepare us for the very heavy reality that we are living through right now. What lessons do we need to draw from the past to be wiser in this era where we can easily fall prey to the same sort of manipulation and fear mongering that led to a whole global economy that depended on people being traded as goods? In this moment, we are dealing with global warming, the depletion of many ecosystems, and the extinction of many millions of species. The expansive view offered in chapter 13 invites us to examine how we value ourselves, each other, the earth, and to consider our position in the world relative to other beings. And as I said, this is a much more expansive view of the world and your position in the world. So, we have many difficult decisions to make. And I believe this orientation of seeing the world as yourself and loving the world as yourself is worth sitting with before making any decision that will give shape to the future that we are co-creating. What lessons have we learned? What resonates for you as you read this chapter 13 of the Tao Te Ching? I welcome and look forward to reading your comments and questions and reflections below. And I do invite you to share this with someone that you want to engage with in conversation. If you'd like to learn more about my book and get on the waiting list, see the link in the description below. Until next time, be well.